Have you ever pictured your ideal spring garden? Bursting with vibrant tulips, lush greenery, and healthy trees. Now picture this instead: stunted seedlings, bare branches, and telltale signs of disease everywhere. What if I told you the fate of your spring garden isn't decided in March, but right now, in October? Today, we're going to uncover the critical autumn gardening mistakes that will cost you dearly come spring. And trust me, some of them might just surprise you. Many people see October as the grand finale of the gardening season. The harvest is in, leaves are falling, and it feels like it's finally time to kick back and relax. But in reality, your garden isn't falling asleep. It's transitioning into vital winter preparation mode. It's during this crucial transition that the foundation for future growth, vibrant blooms, and overall plant health is truly laid. To ignore these October tasks is like building a house without a foundation. Come spring, it simply won't stand. Alright, mistake number 1, and it's arguably the most insidious. We're calling it false cleanliness. Picture this: you've diligently raked, gathering every single fallen leaf. Your garden plot looks pristine, clean, and perfectly manicured. You proudly survey your handiwork thinking, now the garden is truly ready for winter. But it's precisely in this seeming perfection that the biggest danger lurks. While you were busy clearing those leaves, what did you leave behind on the ground? There, under the apple tree, a forgotten, mummified apple. In the vegetable patch, blackened tomato foliage, and in the flower bed, the mildew-ridden remnants of your phlox. You might think these are minor details, things that will simply rot away over the winter. But in reality, you've just left a ticking time bomb. Every rotten fruit, every diseased stem, they're not just harmless debris. They're a cosy winter home for fungal spores, bacteria, and pest eggs. They'll happily overwinter in those plant remnants, right there in your soil. And what happens in spring? With the first hint of warmth, this entire army will awaken, hungry and ready to attack your young, delicate plants. You've essentially created the perfect launching pad for them. So come spring, don't be surprised by sudden outbreaks of scab, late blight, and other devastating diseases. You've carefully nurtured them right through the winter. But then there's the flip side of the coin, equally damaging. Let's call it sterile garden syndrome. This is when a perfectionist gardener removes absolutely everything. Every fallen leaf, every errant blade of grass is meticulously raked up and hauled away. Beneath trees and shrubs, you're left with perfectly bare, dark soil. You might think, true cleanliness. But in reality, you've just committed an act of sabotage against your own garden. That layer of healthy leaves isn't rubbish. It's nature's protective blanket. It insulates the root systems of your plants, safeguarding them from freezing in harsh, snowless winters. By clearing it away, you leave those roots exposed and vulnerable to the biting cold, especially young plantings and plants with shallow root systems. But that's not all. You've literally stolen dinner from some of your garden's most vital inhabitants: earthworms and beneficial soil microorganisms. These are the unsung heroes who tirelessly break down that organic matter, transforming it into precious humus. Humus enriches the soil, making it fertile, loose, and full of life. Without this continuous organic input, your soil will gradually become depleted, compacted, and lose its healthy structure. Come spring, you'll be puzzled why your plants are struggling to thrive in what looks like perfectly clean soil. The simple answer: you've inadvertently starved it of life. Next, let's talk about the missed opportunity trap. This mistake won't harm your trees, but it will absolutely deny you the sheer joy of spring's first magical show. In the rush of autumn chores, we often think, okay, that's it. Planting season is closed. I'll get to the rest in spring. And this is where we make a critical misstep. October is your very last chance, the final window, for planting spring flowering bulbs. Tulips, daffodils, crocuses, hyacinths, all these harbingers of spring must be planted in autumn. They absolutely require a period of dormancy in the cold ground. This time allows them to develop a strong root system and prepare for their spectacular spring burst. Without this essential winter chill, you won't see that much anticipated spring magic. Now imagine this. April arrives and all your neighbours' gardens are bursting with vibrant islands of early blooms, while yours still looks grey and sleepy, and you'll sadly realise that just 1 hour spent last autumn could have given you all that breathtaking beauty. Don't put off until spring. What can make your spring truly enchanting? Planting bulbs in October is one of the most rewarding gardening tasks, guaranteeing a spectacular return on your small investment. Now let's talk about a tool that, in October, can quickly turn from your best friend into your worst enemy, your pruning shears. It's tempting to want to tidy things up, shape that apple tree, or trim back overgrown branches on your hydrangeas and roses. You might think it makes sense to prepare your plants for winter by removing anything extra or unruly, but this is actually one of the most common and dangerous mistakes you can make. So what happens when you do an active, formative prune during autumn? Your plant receives a powerful, urgent signal. Danger. Time to grow new shoots immediately. Obeying nature's call, it diverts its stored energy and pushes out tender new growth. Then, inevitably, the first hard frosts arrive. These delicate green shoots, which haven't had time to harden off and develop protective bark, are the first to perish. They simply blacken and freeze solid. Ultimately, instead of helping your plant, you've actually harmed it. The plant has wasted precious energy it spent all summer accumulating. It goes into winter weakened, with frost-damaged wounds that come spring will be open invitations for fungi and diseases. Remember this. In October, we only perform hand sanitary pruning, removing dead, broken, or obviously diseased branches. All other pruning, the beauty kind, is a job best left for spring. But what about those weeds? This is arguably the most alluring and perhaps the most common mistake gardeners make. You look at your garden bed, see those established dandelions, ground elder, or chickweed, and you think, why bother? Frost will come soon, and they'll die off anyway. Sounds logical, doesn't it? And at first glance it really does. But in fact, this is a massive trap, one that even seasoned gardeners often fall prey to. The truth is, many fall weeds are true survival experts. Their primary goal before winter sets in isn't just to grow, but to successfully reproduce. They shed thousands, even tens of thousands, of seeds into the soil. These seeds have phenomenal viability. They'll safely overwinter beneath the snow, undergo natural cold stratification, and in spring, with the very first rays of sun, they'll all burst into growth together like a formidable army. And you won't just have a few weeds here and there. You'll have a dense green carpet that will choke out your cultivated plants, robbing them of light, moisture, and precious nutrients. Effectively, one weed left in October can mean 100 new weeds in May. So, summon the energy and go over your garden with a hoe one last time. This effort will save you weeks of back-breaking weeding next spring. Next, let's talk about fertilizers. Here lies a common pitfall, the well-intentioned mistake. It's completely natural to want to help your plants, to give them a boost before the long, cold winter. You head to the store, grab a complete fertilizer, and generously sprinkle it around your shrubs and trees. But, as always, the devil is in the details, specifically the ingredients. If your fertilizer has a high nitrogen content, you're actually doing your plants a significant disservice. What does nitrogen do? It promotes vigorous growth of green mass, leaves and new shoots. For spring and summer, that's exactly what you want. But in autumn, you're essentially screaming at your plant, "Grow! Put out new leaves!" And the plant obliges. It starts actively vegetating, expending its last reserves of energy on growth that's completely out of place with winter fast approaching. Then the first hard frost hits, and all that tender new growth is instantly killed off. Not only has the plant wasted precious energy, but it also hasn't had a chance to harden off for the cold. Its wood hasn't matured. As a result, it goes into winter weakened and unprepared. In autumn, plants don't need nitrogen. They need potassium and phosphorus. These help strengthen the root system, boost their frost resistance, and promote wood maturation. so always read the label carefully to ensure your good intentions don't lead to trouble. Another common, yet often overlooked, garden mistake is leaving your soil unprotected after the harvest. Once the crops are gathered and the beds are empty, it's incredibly tempting to just let everything be until spring. If you have light sandy soil, this might not be a major issue. However, if your garden features heavy clay or loamy soil, this kind of neglect can be truly disastrous. Throughout the autumn and winter, as rain and melting snow fall, this type of soil will compact and become incredibly dense. By spring, it will have transformed into a rock-hard monolith. You'll arrive in your garden with your seeds, only to find it nearly impossible to even get a shovel into the ground. Young plant roots will struggle immensely to penetrate this hard, impenetrable layer, and crucial air exchange will be severely hampered. The solution? Autumn digging. But not just any digging. A specific technique. You need to dig the soil, but without breaking up the clods. Leave those large clumps of earth intact. Over the winter, the frost, moisture and wind will do all the hard work for you. Water will seep into the pores, freeze, expand, and effectively break up these clods from the inside out. By spring, your heavy soil will be loose, well-structured, and full of air. Absolutely perfect for planting. Moving on, another common pitfall that can devastate even the most beautiful plants in your garden is neglecting to water them. Sounds counterintuitive, right? It's autumn, it often rains. How could there possibly be a moisture deficit? And for most plants, you'd be correct. However, there's a particular risk category. Conifers and evergreen plants like arbor vitae, spruces, pines, junipers, and rhododendrons. Unlike deciduous plants, they don't shed their foliage and continue to transpire moisture through their needles and leaves all winter long, especially on sunny and windy days. Here's a common gardening mistake I like to call the tooltip infection. After finishing our work, we often just toss our tools into the shed as they are. A shovel caked with dirt, pruners sticky with sap and leaf bits, a hoe covered in dried mud. You might think, no big deal, I'll clean them next spring. But this is a significant risk. Imagine you pruned a branch infected with fungus or dug up a plant with a diseased root system. Disease spores and microscopic pests remain on your tool surface. In the shed, they'll happily overwinter. Come spring, you grab those same pruners and head off to trim a healthy tree. And with your own hands, you're essentially inoculating it with disease. A cut is an open wound, and you're introducing infection directly into it. The same goes for your shovel. As you dig up soil, you spread pathogens from an infected patch to a healthy one. That's why a simple rule of hygiene can save your garden. After each use, always clean your tools of dirt and plant residue. And for cutting tools like pruners and saws, always disinfect them with rubbing alcohol, chlorhexidine, or any other antiseptic. It takes just 5 minutes, but it could save you a season of trouble. Now let's talk about the green carpet of your yard, your lawn. We're going to uncover 2 crucial mistakes people often make here. The first is skipping that final mow of the season. By October, grass growth slows down considerably, and it's tempting to leave it be. Many believe that leaving it long will offer more protection during winter, keeping it warmer. But this is a common misconception. If you leave your lawn too high, say, above 7 to 8 centimetres, or around 3 inches, a nasty problem can develop under the snow. A dense blanket of snow will press the tall blades flat against the soil, essentially suffocating them. In this environment of high moisture and poor air circulation, the tall grass will start to mat, decay, and become a perfect breeding ground for fungal diseases. The most notorious of these is snow mould. Come spring, when the snow finally melts, you'll be greeted not by a pristine lawn, but by unsightly grey or pinkish patches of dead, matted grass. Repairing these bare, damaged areas is a time-consuming and frustrating task. So, depending on your local weather patterns, make sure to perform that final cut. Aim for a grass height of around 5 centimetres or about 2 inches. This is the ideal height for your lawn to successfully endure the winter. Right away, the second common mistake homeowners make with their lawns is leaving fallen leaves on them. Many people mistakenly think, It's just organic matter. It will break down and nourish the soil. While that might be true for a garden bed, for your lawn, it's a death sentence. A dense, wet carpet of matted leaves acts like a suffocating compress. It completely blocks out light and air, depriving your grass of essential elements. Beneath this blanket, a perfect hothouse environment forms, dark, damp, and warm. This creates an ideal breeding ground for the very fungi and mould we've discussed. The grass underneath can't breathe. It essentially rots away and dies. Come spring, when you finally rake away this decaying layer, you won't find lush, green grass. Instead, you'll uncover yellow, lifeless patches. What's more, this leafy cover provides an excellent winter hideout for slugs and other harmful pests. So don't neglect this crucial task. Regularly, at least once a week, use a leaf rake to clear all fallen foliage from your lawn. Your lawn will thank you with lush, vibrant greenery next spring. And the healthy leaves you collect can be added to your compost pile. They'll be far more beneficial there. Next up is a mistake that breaks the hearts of many a gardener come spring. Let's call this the vulnerable newcomer error. You've carefully planted young fruit trees, apples, pears, plums, in the fall. They're still slender, with tender, smooth bark. You admire your new additions, thinking your job is done. But you've overlooked the hungry residents of the winter woods and fields. Once snow blankets the ground, rabbits and voles will face a tough time, as their usual food sources become scarce or inaccessible. And that's when your tender young trees become the most appealing and easiest meal. For a hungry rabbit, the bark of a young sapling is an absolute delicacy. In just one night, it can completely strip the bark around the trunk, a process known as girdling. And for the tree, this is a death sentence, as the bark is crucial for transporting vital nutrients. Come spring, you'll return to your garden only to find ghostly white skeletons where your vibrant young trees once stood. To avoid this tragic outcome, protection is absolutely essential. Wrap the tree trunks with specialised plastic tree guards, burlap, garden fabric, or even old nylon stockings. The key is to use a breathable material that effectively shields the bark from those sharp teeth. Now let's talk about a mistake that won't harm your plants, but go straight for your wallet: the ice bomb waiting in your irrigation system. The irrigation season has ended. You've coiled up your hoses, turned off the main tap, and confidently left for the winter. But you overlooked one small yet critical detail: completely draining every last drop of water from the system. What happens next? Water remains trapped in your hoses, any rain barrels or storage tanks, your spigots, and most catastrophically, within the pipes of your underground irrigation system. Then, the frost arrives. We all remember from basic physics class that water expands when it freezes, and it doesn't just expand a little, it does so with immense, destructive force. This incredible force can easily rupture plastic pipes, burst fittings, crack spigots, and turn your expensive garden hoses into Swiss cheese. You won't see the damage during the winter. The catastrophe will only become apparent in the spring, when you decide to reactivate your irrigation system. You'll turn on the tap, and instead of gentle, even sprays, you'll be greeted by geysers erupting from the ground and rivers flowing from your now shattered hoses. Your spring gardening will kick off not with enjoyable planting, but with a costly, messy, and frustrating overhaul of your entire watering system. So, don't be lazy. Take the time to blow out your system with an air compressor. Disconnect all hoses and completely drain any rain barrels or storage tanks. These simple steps will save you a significant amount of money and a whole lot of stress. Let's turn our attention to the more delicate inhabitants of the garden: roses, hydrangeas, and other tender plants. The common mistake here is often described as suffocating them with love. It's perfectly understandable to want to give your beloved shrubs the best possible protection from the cold. However, in this particular endeavour, haste and over-eagerness can prove far more detrimental than the frost itself. The most frequent problem is covering plants too early. You check the forecast, see the first light frosts, and immediately rush to bundle up your roses in several layers of protective fabric. But autumn weather can be deceptive. Warm, rainy days often return after those initial cold snaps. What exactly happens under all that dense covering? A thermos effect is created. It becomes warm and very humid. In such conditions, the plant doesn't prepare for winter. Instead, it continues to actively grow, and its buds might even break dormancy. More critically, this creates an ideal breeding ground for fungal infections and mold. Under such a blanket, the plant begins to rot. Its bark and buds blacken and decay. When you remove the covering in spring, hoping to find a vibrant, healthy shrub, you'll instead discover blackened, rotting branches. The correct time to cover your plants is when consistently freezing temperatures set in and the ground has already started to freeze superficially. And crucially, the covering itself must be breathable, allowing for proper ventilation. Here's a common mistake many gardeners make, often dismissing it as purely cosmetic, but in reality it has enormous practical significance. It's the neglect of autumn tree whitewashing. Most gardeners whitewash tree trunks in spring, typically in April, aiming for a fresh look by the May holidays. While this isn't necessarily bad, the whitewash's primary protective function actually comes into play during winter, specifically late winter. Picture this: February or early March. The sun is bright during the day, almost spring-like. The dark bark of trees absorbs this warmth, heating up to above freezing temperatures, potentially even causing sap to start flowing. Then, at night, a severe frost hits. The living tissues of the bark, now full of moisture, suddenly freeze. Ice crystals tear apart the cells, creating deep cracks. These are known as frost cracks. Furthermore, the stark contrast between the bright white snow and the dark tree trunk can create significant temperature fluctuations, often leading to sun scald. The white colour of the whitewash reflects the sun's rays, preventing the trunk from overheating during the day. This evens out daily temperature swings and protects the bark from damage. And healthy bark is vital for the overall health of the tree. Therefore, tree trunks should be whitewashed not in spring for aesthetics, but specifically in October or November for protection. Let's turn our attention now to what many consider the heart of every gardener's domain, the compost heap. This is where a common pitfall, what I like to call compost sabotage, often occurs. You collect plant waste with the goal of turning it into valuable fertilizer, and that's absolutely the right idea. But what exactly are you putting in there? Perhaps you've pulled up tomato plants infected with blight, or trimmed apple branches showing signs of scab. Maybe you've even weeded out weeds that have already gone to seed. And where does all that end up? You guessed it, right into the general compost heap. You might assume that over the course of a winter and a summer, everything will decompose, and all disease pathogens will simply vanish. Sadly, that's a dangerous misconception. The spores from many fungal diseases are incredibly tough. They do just fine in compost, and some even thrive and multiply. So, instead of creating nutrient-rich soil, you're essentially building a biological time bomb with your own hands. Come spring, you'll lovingly spread this charged compost across your garden beds, nurturing your vegetables and flowers. And then you'll wonder why, despite all your diligent efforts, your plants are struggling with disease right from the start of the season. Here's the golden rule: only healthy plant material belongs in your compost pile. All diseased foliage and infected branches must be burned or completely removed from your property. Take a moment to inspect your fruit trees and berry bushes. Do you see those dried, shriveled fruits still clinging to the branches after harvest? They look like tiny mummies. Leaving them there for winter is a critical mistake. It might seem like just a few forgotten berries or plums. What harm could they possibly do? However, each one of these mummified fruits is more than just a dried remnant. It's a potent breeding ground for infection, most commonly fruit rot or brown rot. Inside these fruits, like a secure bunker, fungal spores overwinter, perfectly protected from frost and harsh weather. Come spring, with the first warmth and moisture, these spores activate and disperse throughout your garden, infecting young blossoms and newly formed fruit. The result is a new, even more severe outbreak of disease in the following season. A single, rotten fruit left behind can infect dozens, even hundreds, of future apples or cherries. So don't underestimate the importance of this task. Grab your pruning shears or a long stick and knock down every single one of those dried fruits. Collect them all and, crucially, burn them to destroy the source of infection once and for all. Now let's take a look inside the greenhouse. After the last tomatoes and peppers are harvested, many gardeners simply lock the door until next spring. That's a huge oversight. You're essentially offering a cosy winter refuge to all your garden foes. A greenhouse's enclosed environment creates an ideal microclimate, unfortunately, not just for your crops, but also for various pests and diseases. Spider mites, whiteflies, and the spores of blight and leaf mold. They all absolutely thrive in greenhouse conditions. When you simply close up your greenhouse, you're leaving this entire army to overwinter in the most comfortable conditions imaginable. They'll happily survive the winter in the topsoil, on lingering plant debris, tucked away in the frame's crevices, and even on the polycarbonate surfaces. Come spring, as soon as the sun brings warmth, they'll awaken in their cosy home, fully prepared to launch an attack on your first, most delicate seedlings. To prevent this scenario, thorough autumn treatment of your greenhouse is absolutely essential. You need to remove every single piece of plant debris, thoroughly wash down the frame, and covering with a disinfectant solution, and ideally either remove the top layer of soil or treat it with specialised products. Yes, it's a bit of work, but it's the key to ensuring a healthy and abundant harvest next year. The second to last mistake on our list involves something right under your feet, the area around the base of your trees and shrubs. This zone is often overlooked. It's common to find fallen fruit, weeds, and a thick layer of unraked leaves accumulating there. Ignoring this strategically important area is a big mistake. Why is it so crucial? Because this loose soil, hidden beneath plant debris, provides the perfect winter home for some of your garden's most destructive pests. Weevils, sawflies, codling moth larvae, and cherry fruit fly pupae. They all find ideal shelter here. They burrow just beneath the surface, comfortably surviving the cold, right at the roots of their future food source. Come spring, they don't have far to fly or crawl. They simply wake up and immediately begin their ascent up the trunk, ready to lay their eggs in young buds and developing fruit. To deny them this opportunity, you need to thoroughly clear the area around the base of your trees and shrubs of all plant debris. Then, very carefully and shallowly, cultivate the soil. This simple process exposes these overwintering pests to the surface, where they'll be swiftly eliminated by the first hard frosts and hungry birds. And finally, the most subtle, yet equally damaging mistake. It's not about your tools, it's all in your head. This is what I call garden amnesia syndrome. You rely on your memory, confident that by spring, you'll easily remember every detail of the past season. You don't write down which cucumber variety was the most prolific, or which was the most disease-resistant. You forget to note which corner of the garden your tomatoes constantly suffered from blight and where they thrived. You transplanted that favourite peony, but by spring, you've completely forgotten its new location. Consequently, every new season feels like starting from scratch. You buy the same varieties that have already disappointed you. You replant vulnerable crops in infected spots. You waste time and money repeating the same mistakes. The solution is simple. Start a garden journal. This can be a simple notebook or even notes on your phone. In October, while memories are still fresh, jot down all the season's takeaways, what succeeded, what failed, which plants struggled, and where you need to rotate crops. This simple habit will transform your chaotic experience into a valuable knowledge base, which year after year will not only make your garden better, but also make you a wiser gardener. Now picture this. It's April. You step into your garden and instead of joy, you're filled with disappointment. Your lawn is patchy with snow mould. That young apple tree you were so excited about, its trunk is gnawed clean. The roses you carefully tucked away for winter have blackened and rotted. Your flower beds are overrun with weeds you skipped pulling in October. You're now battling diseases that overwintered on unclean debris, spending money on new plants to replace the ones you lost, and pouring in exponentially more effort just to bring your garden back to life. Quite the plot twist, right? All these spring catastrophes are a direct consequence of a few weeks of inaction or incorrect actions back in October. The price of autumn laziness isn't just lost time and money, it's most importantly the lost joy of your spring garden. Remember, October in the garden isn't the finish line, it's the strategic starting point for a brand new season. Every action you take now is an investment in abundant blooms and a bountiful harvest later. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. If you found it helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new tips. And now, a question for you. What autumn gardening mistake have you made yourself? Or maybe you have a secret October hack you're willing to share? Let us know in the comments below. Let's learn together.